Good morning, everyone. Very nice to be here. Again, it's a pleasure to be able to speak in Digital Week. So my name is Fong. I'll be your host today. And then today we have two very distinguished panelists. Let me just do a very quick introduction about myself first. And my name is Fong. I'm the CEO of LGMS. We are a specialized cybersecurity testing firm in Malaysia. So my background is pretty much in I used to work in the technical field for the last 20 years, but today most of the things I do mostly on Excel and PowerPoints. So today we're going to talk about a very interesting topic about endpoint security. I think endpoint has emerged as one of the most important elements within an organization for the last few years. You have witnessed many cybersecurity incidents, cybersecurity attacks, more or less related to the endpoint security. So that's why today's topic will be very interesting. And we would like to hear from our two distinguished panelists about their view about the endpoint security. So I'll hand over to one of our panelists to do the introduction by themselves. Okay, Soumo.
Good morning, everyone. So it's really an honor to be part of this event. And my name is Soumo Mukherjee. I am from Petronas. I head the security architecture, mainly focusing towards endpoint, identity access management, and as well as the whole Microsoft security suite. And I have been with Petronas for last 4 years. And before that, I was with Microsoft with different roles and started as a developer, moved into technical enterprise architecture, and now last few years into cybersecurity. Yeah, so I'll pass it on to Reto.
It's my pleasure being here, and I hope you can hear me.
Yep.
I am 35 years in the IT space, of which the 30 years have been in various IT roles, and security as such always played an important role. For the last 4 years, I've been an independent advisor for many IT aspects where security overall always played an important role.
Okay, that's a very brief introduction. Meantime, let's keep this panel discussion more casual and open. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to key in the chat box. I will do my best to address your questions, and also we'll share together with the panelists. So let's start with our topic today, establishing good endpoint practices. Now, before we talk about endpoint itself, right? Let's look at what has happened since last year, March. You know, that the pandemic has actually created a huge impact to our lives. I believe that most of our attendees today are calling from home. Anyone calling from the office will be good, but I'm actually working from home since last year. So because of the COVID-19, right? One question I would like to immediately ask the panels is that, you know, how have the new COVID-19 working culture shaped the security of computers, particularly computer endpoints? What do you think? How have, you know, the COVID-19 changed us?
So generally, if we see in the last 1 year, especially since March, so I think we are closely moving towards 1 year of
anniversary.
Lockdown. Yeah. We are almost getting into the anniversary of that. That's not a good thing, but still. So there is, in terms of endpoint, previously most of the companies, the big, small, had a strategy of more towards securing their own perimeter. So if somebody, you know, the general part was that, okay, you take a company device, the whole device has been kind of fully controlled, then you come into a secure perimeter, whether it's physical security, network security, or any other kind of security, then you log in into your system. And in a way, the companies had more control, more management over what's going on in and out. Now, with the COVID-19 situation, so especially what has happened is, as most of us are working from home or working from a location which is not in a way visible or in control of the companies. So how do you manage in this scenario? Because you're no more looking into a one-dimensional security, you're looking into a multi-dimensional security, starting from data, device, your network. So I think that has changed the way the working culture has changed because of the COVID-19 situation. And so what requires is the company to change the strategy, or they may have, I mean, a lot of companies are in the process of changing that, or looking into how in a long term this would eventually be. So says, I don't think so that this is, yes, people will start going to office once the vaccination is kind of moving forward and all, but I think a lot of companies have realized that there's an ample amount of work which can be done without everybody going to a physical location. So I think we have to start strategizing, if we have not yet, in terms of how are we going to manage moving forward as well.
That's a very good point. So companies need to start to adapt to the cultural shift, right, by the employees working from home. That's interesting. Dr. Reto?
When we look at COVID, it was a wake-up call. When we look at companies, let's say 2 years ago, you ask a company, do you have a security process in place, which includes the endpoint? Some of them said yes, some of them said, I don't know. And some said no. And COVID-19 was the wake-up call to, oh, we have to change something. Since imagine suddenly people work from home, is their endpoint secure? Are you sure that they don't use the most important asset of the company, which is the data? Can't they breach it? Do they take with their end user device, such as a mobile phone or a tablet, pictures of relevant data and disseminate them somewhere in YouTube or wherever? All these kind of questions have to be addressed now. So with all the downside of COVID, there's an upside. Companies wake up and do some stuff. And I think when I look back over the last many years I have been in this field, there's one thing which we should never forget is, it's not only about endpoint security, it's about security as a process for the enterprise, where the endpoint plays a more and more important role, especially also when I think about IoT.
Dr. Reto, I have another question for you. Since you are the advisor for many financial institutions in Malaysia, what do you see some of these industries that may not be able to fully work from home? How do they able to address the issue of endpoint security?
You see, companies which cannot work from home, and here I'm not, take a bank. Theoretically, everything could be done from home, but the process is not in place to do it from home. The regulation is not in place to do it from home. So it goes far beyond security, since there is an interjection also with regulations, what is allowed from the regulatory point of view. And here, worldwide, we have to rethink the entire process in order to make it safe. Imagine a loan approver of a bank works from home. This needs a lot of regulation, it needs a lot of safety and security measures, etc., that there's no gossiping around, etc., etc., etc. No one in the world is ready for that. It needs a lot more. And COVID-19 is the ultimate wake-up call that the entire industry has to rethink worldwide, not only in Malaysia, everywhere.
Yeah, it really goes beyond security, right? So it comes with policies, procedures, guidelines, and law. And I have another question here. What are the major threats that you think that are having the biggest impact on us? And how do you see Malaysian organizations have adapted to these cybersecurity threats? And when I say threats, I'm referring to threats to endpoints. What are the major threats to endpoints that you think have the biggest impact on us?
To me, it is clearly the organization of not being prepared. Imagine suddenly you cannot go in the office anymore and you have to work from home. Is the PC or the end user device secure? Does it have a container that things can only be put in, but nothing can be taken out? That's a big problem. And these are the things which cannot be established in one day. It needs a long time to prepare it. It needs a lot of tests. etc., until you can say, okay, now we are safe enough, our people can work from.
Yep. So based on Dr. Reto's comment is that the major threat to organizations today in terms of endpoint is the readiness of the organization in preparing the stuff, right? And then like what you say is also very true. Security is not like built in one day. It's always a cumulative process. Yeah, let's look at another aspect about the major threats. I think today I think most of people have probably heard of other threats like technical threats like ransomware. We have heard about malware, viruses. In fact, for all we know, they always have ransomware attacks almost at the daily or even weekly basis. So Reto, have you got any advice for organizations out there how to protect the endpoint security against all these common malware attacks?
When I look how it was done in IBM and while I was with IBM, and I think that's a very good way to do is, of course, people have to follow a very strict process. So of course the endpoint is secured. There's a container, so you cannot take stuff out in your private folder. You can only put from your private folder into the thing. It needs some regulation within the company that dealing with this data. And people have to clearly clump up on top of all the technicalities which can be solved, which is basically just a matter of which endpoint security device do you use. People have to follow a strict process and have to certify themselves regularly. If there is no regular certification of the people that they know how to behave and what is allowed and what is not allowed, that's one thing. The next thing is people have to be made liable for what they do wrong. So let's assume, for instance, if a corporation sees that someone is willingly trying to cheat the system and to take out of his endpoint some data, the person has to be liable for it with a consequence. So therefore, it's not only a technical issue. The technical issue can be solved as good as possible. It's also a, I would say, compliance or regulation issue within the corporation and in some industries within the government, especially when we talk about finance, etc. For instance, there's clearly Bank Negara has something to say, the Ministry of Finance, etc.
So like you say, it's very true because I believe that the endpoint security is not just limited to technical, but culturally our regulations, our rules and regulations seems kind of immature that need to be beefed up in order to cope with this sudden change, which is I think this is also a common perspective for many organizations management needs to be aware of. Security issue is not really technical security per se. It also has a lot to do with processes, policies, procedures, and all that. Reto, Dr. Reto, let's continue on some of these questions that I've prepared earlier. Now, coming back to Malaysia, right? How do you see Malaysian organizations in general has been adapting to these cyber threats in the market right now? As an overview, how do you see?
The issues regarding security are pretty much everywhere the same. So from the technical point of view, I think there is no difference. Where I see a difference in almost all Southeast Asia is in the process. The process exists, but the process is not executed thoroughly sometimes. So to give you an example, if I am asked by a company to have a look at their IT and it comes to security, and they want to show me all the tools and all the toys they have, I said, no, I don't want to see them. I believe you can do that. Where is your security process documented? I ask these kind of questions, large corporations in the US. Sometimes they look at me and say, So you see, it is everywhere the same. If security is not documented as a process and the agility is not provided, then nothing can be done. Let me highlight one example. Take a company which is working in the industrial sector and is doing a lot of production with robotics. Is the robot secured as an endpoint? The answer is, I don't know, but most probably not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think here we have to change worldwide the entire awareness that this Internet of Things, where every edge computing, etc., this all needs more security. Since imagine a remote surgery, which can be done today. If there is no security and no process in place, it can become a disaster. So I think worldwide, we really have to work on this to make security better this way and to use all the tools. I always say the tool we buy, the tool what companies provide us is a tool, but the tool supports a process. And this is the crucial thing. And there worldwide, we still have to make a lot of progress, especially with the introduction of digitization. I mean, more companies become digitalized, the more important it becomes to do.
Yeah.
And I think in the end of the day, we simply have to say is security is a hygiene factor, and this hygiene factor has to be done. It is supporting the business of a digital economy. That's pretty much it.
So essentially, I strongly agree with you on the essential part of security, which is the process has to be established, has to be in place, has to be aware by whoever is need to be controlled by the processes, and people need to be accountable on the security. And the tools that we bought, whatever software, hardware we bought, are just supportive elements to support these processes. Which is so any organizations, management out there, C-level executives, I think this is something that we need to highlight again. Processes are still the essential part of good security. Now we have questions coming in. I just wanted to throw to Dr. Reto as well while we're waiting for Soumo to come back. The question is that unwanted emails are coming into the university mail ID, and how to stop these unwanted emails. I guess this is a common problem, spams. How do we stop spams, basically?
I can only tell you how I do it. I have a spam folder that just goes directly in there. So sometimes I look in my spam folder and I have to say, this works very well. So spams, from my experience point of view, this is a pretty much automated process which any email system which is worthwhile handles directly. That's my personal experience, and when I look in corporations, usually they handle it this way. But yes, I still have to look sometimes in my spam folder whether something comes in which should not land there, but that's maybe once a month. But,
yeah.
Okay, I do not get that many emails anymore since I'm not in a corporate function on a daily basis.
But I think one thing we can't deny nowadays is inevitable. We cannot deny is that spam. There will be always people sending spam mails. It's just the technologies. When technology is getting more and more advanced, we are relying on artificial intelligence and more machine learning to be able to adapt and learn about the spam and help us to classify it. But one thing we can't stop is that people sending spam mails. I would like to hear your view. Just now we had this discussion. What do you think are the major threats to Malaysian companies in terms of endpoint security?
Sure. So I think when we look at threat perspective, most of the times the companies look at only the device. They're trying to do more of defending the device in terms of threat protection and all. But there are actually three major components. I think what Reto mentioned as well, data. How are you making sure that your data is safe and secure in terms of endpoint? Number two is device. Yes, device, when I say we have to make sure that the network, there are not rogue, malicious activities, antivirus, all those need to be there. There is another aspect to it which has changed over them, especially in the last few years, but especially in the last 1 year, is identity. When you are in today's world, in a way, everything is mainly controlled by your identity. So it's very, very crucial to make sure that your identity is safe, you're accessing your applications, that is safe. So you need to have some feature, making sure you have proper multi-factor authentication, proper encryption. So I think these are the three major ones, what I feel is a major impact. So I think organizations, especially in Malaysia, should start strategizing or coming up with a roadmap which should be around this, with keeping a framework of zero trust. So today, I'm sure everybody has heard of this term zero trust. And so making sure that, simple analogy, don't trust anyone, don't trust anybody. So
including your staff.
Including your staff.
Especially your staff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, and another aspect what I want to highlight onto that is that this only cannot be resolved by technology. There's a culture shift, there's a mindset shift needs to come in, and every employee of your organization should take cybersecurity as their own accountability and responsibility. Because we always prepare for those scenarios where you get attacked or somebody is deliberately doing it, but there are a lot of times when it happens by accident. So how do we stop it? Like, you get a phishing email which looks almost the same as your IT department email. Now, you need to be very aware and see that whether that really, before clicking on that link or whatever is there, make sure that you are aware. The organization should do more education program, and that should be part of the strategy along with technology.
Yes, I think essentially what you are saying, and is very co-aligned with Dr. Reto says, is about process and cultural understanding of a company's processes. Because no matter how secure, how much technology you put in, essentially if your process is not in place, it's unclear, there will be no accountability for people. I can speak for this from my experience as well, because we have been working very closely with many organizations in computer crime investigation and digital forensic. I would say 99.99% of the time when computer crime happen or computer cybersecurity incident happen, not because the technology fail, it's because people fail to adhere to the policies and processes. A good example is that we were working on a case where there was a massive ransomware attack hit into an organization. So when we did a digital forensic, we realized that they have this patching process in place, they have this hardening process in place, and none of these processes are being followed. They just keep buying technologies, keep buying and buying and buying, but essential part is not done. I mean, the people are not following processes and procedures.
All the three aspects, people, process, technology, should go in hand.
Yes.
To address any kind of cyber attack, or let's say to secure your environment.
Yeah, that's very true. I think this, like Dr. Reto said earlier, this COVID-19 is really a wake-up call for organizations to re-inspect their own processes and re-examine themselves, see whether they can cope with this. It's not so much on the technology, but also the process. So I have another question, last question for everyone. What are the common pitfalls Oversight Malaysian organizations fall into when it comes to deploying endpoint security? Now we're still coming back to technologies, right? But we can also elaborate this from a process perspective. What do you think are the common pitfalls when we try to deploy certain security? Dr. Reto?
See, companies, they like to buy new tools to do a 6 months evaluation for a little tool, and then they install it. They don't use it. They don't interpret it. They don't integrate it in the process. So I think it's back to square one. The tool is a support for the process, and the process is not a support for the tool.
Yes. Soumo, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely what Dr. Reto said, that, so I think for organization, what they should, previously we spoke about they need to strategize, but at the same time, they also need to address their execution part as well. I mean, you can have your strategy, your architecture, roadmap team coming up with a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year one, and you go ahead and buy tools, but then you also have to make sure that the execution is agile, quick, and also it goes with the maturity of the organization. So generally my recommendation, in a way we can use it on our life as well, identify your current state first. Because if you do not identify your current state, you may know your future state. You can call experts, you can call different vendors, companies, they will always show you the future state. Now, how are you going to achieve that? Some companies may take 1 year, depending on if they're more mature. Some companies can take 5 years. So it's very important that you identify your current state, future state, and if you are matured enough, to jump directly into future state, good, get into execution. If not, identify an interim state as well. What are your crown jewels? What are you trying to prioritize? Do that first. And again, as Dr. Reto said, all these will go hand if the process is not in place, if the people are not there to execute in an agile, in a quick way the technologies are moving, the more security products you buy today, there are teams of, I should not say, but there are teams of hackers who are sitting there trying to crack that as well. So it's a race. You do it fast or they do it fast. It depends.
Yeah, it's a continuous race, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and the scary thing is hacker works 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
And they are a classic example of focused execution. We are not. We are distracted with so many. They are just focused on
focus,
yeah.
mission focus.
Yeah.
So if we have to let's summarize this session, right? If we are to give an advice to all the security managers, practitioners, or even management of organizations, to talk about how do we manage endpoint security as a overall, what would be your advice? Perhaps Dr. Reto, you can start first.
Check how your entire security process is embedded in the entire corporation. And identify the loopholes and work on them.
Okay. Soumo?
Okay, I think as Dr. Reto said, quite similar. First, identify your current state. What are your loopholes? What are your gaps? Then identify a future state, and then identify the process in the middle. How do you want to achieve it? Prioritize it. At the same time, I'm sure technology-wise, there are many advices you can get. There are multiple technologies available today in the market, but align your organization, change the mindset, change the culture of everybody. It's not only the cybersecurity department should only be owning it. Yes, they are accountable for it. They make sure that the organization is safe, but at the same time, you have to embed that culture of everybody carries the cybersecurity as their one of the topmost key highlights to keep in mind every time they are accessing any of the organization resources.
Yeah, I like your point, especially where everyone is actually responsible for cybersecurity. It's not just an IT department, right?
Yeah.
So with that, thank you very much. If I can summarize the points made by Dr. Reto, I made some notes here. Basically, culture is very important. Policies and procedures actually dictates how human behave. So we need to increase the maturity of understanding of policies and procedures we have for the organization. And also, more importantly, also, if in order for us to overcome the challenges, right, we need to identify the gaps within our organizations first, within us first, so that we know where are the gaps, where are the parts that we need to improve. Then only we can make it make a better security strategies out of this. With that, thank you very much, fellow panelists, and I really want to thank you guys for your valuable feedback. And that's all from our session. So I'll pass it back to you, Katie.
Okay, thank you guys. That was a great way to close off our Malaysia session. We'll be continuing to talk about cybersecurity throughout Digital Week. So anyone who joined especially to hear about this topic, there's a lot more in store. To the panelists, it was great to have you. I'm sure we'll have you back at a future W Media event. So please, attendees, if you have follow-up questions, reach out to someone at W Media or just directly to the panelists themselves. We will connect you guys if need be.